Hello friends, I'm Colonel Fader and this is Get Back to Work, a game in which it's not a game, it's a series where I play a game, Getting Back to Work. Oh, it's the simulator that I play with. It's farming sim, it's night time. When I actually get into the action, it won't be night time. I'll have whizzed it forward till morn. Ooh, a bit of exciting murk there. Anyway, given it's December and I've got it on fast forward at the moment, we're going to rock up in January where it will be bale selling time, because I figure that's a nice little self-contained job that should do the task for us nicely. I've got lots of money in the bank already. This particular caper may knock me over the 100 grand mark. Yeah. I'll then wipe it out because I'll have to pay the maintenance on my tractors. Hey ho, today's topic is relevant. Right, I've selected the appropriate tractor for this particular mission. It's completely busted up, but it's got loads of fuel. If you're going, oh, you left some bales lying around there. Yeah, that's cow feed. No, we don't. I mean, I reckon the cows are probably well fed at the moment, but it's anybody's guess, really. No. This is what we came for. Is we want the old bale loader, which has got some bales on it, as you can plainly see, despite the fact that they are wearing winter camouflage at the current time. Anyway, today's request comes from Hannah's, and Hannah's has asked if I could answer the following: what would the perfect work simulator look like? You're looking at it. Yeah, in all seriousness, Farm Sim is as close to spot on as is currently available. What have you done wrong here? You've pressed the wrong button. Oh, I've pressed the get off my tractor button. Yeah, not the scoopy scoop button. Yeah, it's all right. I know which way around it is. Well, this is just made for extra work to do. Ah, bum. All right, so I'm going to reframe the first part of the question because it will answer the second. Well, I'll answer something else to start with, which is why do I really like Farm Sim? Before turning my attention to, so what would a really good one look like? Because Farm Sim is about the best that's available right now. If you adhere to my kind of definition of a great simulator, a great work simulator. Now, firstly, it's a work simulation game, right? Which means that my harvesting these bales, or rather taking these bales to be sold, which is what I'm doing at the moment, the only reason I'm doing that is not because I have a dying urge to dispatch bales. It may come as a shock to you, but I don't really care about farming at all. I genuinely don't. I grew up in the countryside. This kind of machinery was what I would see out my back window in the summer, in the winter, all times of year. I grew up in an agricultural area, and therefore it would be natural for me to actually be a farming fan. Several of my neighbours were big farming fans. They get terribly excited when they saw a Massey Ferguson buoy. No, not for me. No, don't really care. Massey Ferguson's the only allegiance that I have because that's the brand of tractors that all of the local farmers used. Didn't hold without none of that John Deere business. No, sir. It was all about Massey Ferguson all the time. I imagine they were on a kickback of some description. Doesn't matter. I don't care why. It just is. And red ones go faster. So why is this great? I don't care about tractors. I don't care about crop rotation. I don't care about agriculture and the farming thereof in the slightest. Could not give a hoot. It is something that I believe is absolutely fundamental to the survival of a species, but as a hobby, no. And not even to the extent, right? You know how I'm not a massive trains fan, right? But got a Gronk, got a little N-gauge Gronk sitting around. I got some double O gauge stuff kicking around as well. I quite like trains, but I'm not that busy. I'm not that bothered about where they ran, or how many of them there were, or what the serial numbers were, or how many rivets they have on the front bumper, or whether anything. Right? That's not my level of interest. Plenty of people have that interest, not me. I just quite like trains, and I quite like trains more than I quite like tractors. And I'm entirely neutral about tractors. The existence of tractors neither fascinates me or otherwise. Even the ones with caterpillar tracks. Tanks, they're interesting. Tractors, nah. And no, I'm not a big tanks fan either, before you ask. I'm not a fan of any kind of vehicle, apart from muscle cars, and then only because of their representations in popular culture and games. So, why then? If you're not bothered about the subject matter, it must be the game. It's the game. What I like is, here we are in January. Now, there are certain jobs that can be done in January, and I'm doing one of them. And where did this job come from? It came from me. I set this job up when I cut the grass and decided to wrap it rather than leaving it on the field, so that it would turn into silage, so that come this time of year I could sell it at a premium. I could have sold it straight after I harvested it, but no, I thought, no, I'll weather the not having quite so much cash, even though I think my cash worries are more or less done now. I'll weather not having as much cash. My money worries are largely solved because I've started buying the right kit, and then once you've got the right bit of kit, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Yeah, that was my choice. That was all down to me. The fact that I went grass mowing in the first place was partly because it is the easy route to making money from harvesting anything in this game, but I didn't have to do it. I could have taken any other option that was out there, but I didn't have to do it. I did it because I quite like all of the little mechanical jobs that you have to do along the way, and that it's something that in a game design sense I've worked on in the past in a purely theoretical fashion, which is something that I call cold fusion game design. Now, cold fusion reactors, it's a total nonsense description, but it's a way of kind of just, it's just a title that I give it for something that is actually quite useful. Cold fusion game design is whereby the player of the game, or players if you're in a multiplayer environment, it's where they do all the game design for you. So I'm on a mission at the moment, and I made that mission. And the mission that came before this one, I made that as well. I set this mission, flipping up, I've already broken 100k. I'm going to be ruddy minted after this. I want to buy an expensive piece of kit, I suppose. Yeah, every aspect of what I'm doing right now is something I've set up in the past, including the equipment that I'm using, the month that I'm doing it in, the fact that I've done other jobs before this that have nothing to do with this. This is the time when this job needs to be done, and I'm the one that decided that. Now, all of that has constraints. This isn't total freedom. There are constraints surrounding everything about this. It's the price of silage is only high right now. It won't be as high in the next month. It wasn't as high in the previous month. So if I was going to go after make best bang for buck, this is the month to do it in. But that was my choice. Now, I've designated quite a large field on my property to be dedicated to grass, because I know that push comes to shove, it's going to be a very good way of ramping up a little bit of extra cash on a regular basis so that I can buy more kit in order to potentially do more things. And if you think back to the start of this particular series, a goal that I early on established was that I was going to make wine and cake. Well, I've got cake done. Yeah, I really don't fancy doing wine. But firstly, because it doesn't let you do wine, it lets you do grape juice. And you kind of go, you lightweights, you absolute cowards. I bet Peggy's got something to do with that. I bet a Peggy rating jumps up by 1 if you make alcohol instead of flipping soft drink. In which case it's a good business decision, but at the same time you were going to sell just as many copies. If your kid's a tractor official, it's got no bother about you talking about slaughtering animals, or keeping them in captivity and forcing them to lay or what have you. Now, admittedly, all the farming, all of the cattle and livestock side of the game is done in a humanitarian fashion. So they're free-range chickens, and the cows are kept in nice spacious sheds, and they've got plenty of room to run around outside. But there's nothing to stop you having a battery farm chicken hutch as a mod or something like that. I digress, because that's not the point of what we're talking about. But it's me that's chosen it. I've chosen to use a Massey Ferguson tractor. Other tractors were available. Could have chosen any one of them, but I chose this one. I chose to modify it, and I've chosen to go after wine and cake as my objective. The game has not incentivized me doing that. I chose to do that. That's the game I chose to have using this software. I think I've drummed the point in. That, my friends, is called player agency. Secondly, the player agency then goes to a second level where you can use whatever dopey piece of equipment you like to do the job. Observe Exhibit A, if you would, this orange trailer that I forgot I owned. That's just sat there, and it seems to me that I've just shoved bales on there. They're surplus. That's the bedding for the cows, and I've got an entire stack of bales up there. So I went, oh, I've made too many of these. They're not getting through quite as much bedding as I thought they might. So I brought these down to be sold now as well. Not going to make massive amounts of money from it. Probably could have rented a wrapper and got them done too, but no, it's okay. But at some point I decided, right, cows, going to need to have cows on this farm in order to make milk, in order to make butter and milk, to facilitate my cake bakery. And there it goes. Now, the fact that I can terraform and change the shape of the landscape was great. I could have chosen to buy a field that was rectangular and then bought the neighbouring field that was rectangular and had quite an easy time of it. That's what I did with my first series of Farm Sim, which was on Farm Sim 19. But this one, no, I've gone with effectively a flaming ski slope. Oh yeah, you've got to be funny, haven't you? And it's taken it's taken me installing the there's no cost for terraforming mod, and even then, it's gone like, oh yeah, that's not going to be as easy as you think it's going to be. No, this is way more difficult than you thought. And you've got a divot there that you're never ever going to smooth out, and it's going to ruin everything for everyone for all time. And then I've painted round the outside to make them into nice rectangles and all of that kind of business. I choose the jobs, I choose what order to do them in, I choose the priorities to have, and if at any point I decide, you know what, I never want to do grass mowing again, then I plant something else in that field and I can do something else. At the same time, the mechanics, this is largely hands-off, but I can't go completely hands-off with it. I've got to do just enough to keep the bales being loaded, and that's fine. It's casual. It means that if I want a podcast on in the background, or I want a movie on my second screen, that I can do that too. And these things for me are what make a good work sim. There's one component. That's the biggest component of making a good work sim. The second biggest component is the economics. And that's where Farm Sim comes real close, but not real close. It comes closer to being a simulator, certainly. But because, you know, if you want to make 100 grand as a farmer, start with £1 million. That's yeah, because then you can walk away with 100 grand. Farming is a terrible way to make money, and they do a service which, without it, we wouldn't be around as a species. So it's incredibly important. As much as I may denigrate it in terms of my interest in it, doesn't mean it's not important. And the reason that I'm doing silage is because it pays so well for so little investment. Now, I grow wheat on my main field. You will know this if you are a regular around here. And the reason that I grow wheat is because I like all of the actions associated with it. And also it's a constituent part in making flour, which is a constituent part in making my cakes. But that's by the by. I like doing the harvesting, because the combine harvester bit is good, and if anything, it makes me go, I wish this field was a little bit bigger, because I get through it quite quickly. And then when I'm ploughing the field afterwards, I go, I wish this field wasn't this big. Ploughing is tedious. Planting's not so bad. Fertilising's not too bad. Spreading lime is a doddle. Gathering rocks is a bit of a drag, but The harvesting is just it's majestic, and it's one of the best bits in multiplayer as well, of you driving the combine, summoning a tractor at just the right moment to bring its trailer alongside so you can unload your wheat. Magic. That's gameplay right there. And that's what there is to it. So the economy's not quite right, because on the one hand, it's really tough to make any money in order to expand further, which is why they give you so much money to start with. But if they made it much easier, it would be too easy. I mean, I've got to the point now that I can feasibly afford new kit. I can't afford the most expensive stuff imaginable, but I can. If I were diligent enough to save, I certainly could. And that's the thing. So the other X factor that comes into play is so the gameplay's soothing. The gameplay is what I dictate it to be. There are always a bunch of different things that I can be doing at any given moment. The economy is such that I can save towards whatever I fancy doing next. The contract system is such that it means that I can go and try before I buy. If I fancy doing potatoes, which, let's face it, and go, that's an interesting looking piece of kit. But according to Reddit, potato farming is the last thing you ever want to do, ever. I think it's a toss-up between that and making cotton are the two least enjoyable activities that you can do in Farm Sim. And you go, right, okay, all right, fine. I can get behind that. Although I have to say that mucking about with grapes left me pretty flipping chilly as well. But that's where contracts become great. Firstly, you can make some extra money. But secondly, you could try out the kit before you spend what meagre monies you've managed to save up so far in testing it all out, which is ace. Yeah, it's good. So what would you change? Is it the mundanity of the setting that makes all the difference? Now, if you look at something like Euro Truck, and Euro Truck is the #1 work simulator in the world. There is nothing else that comes close. It's a simulation game because it has that cause and effect loop of get round to the end, get a bit more money, maybe you're saving up for a new truck, maybe you're trying to hire another driver to make your money come in a bit faster, whatever it is. It's got that cause and effect loop, and then the activity itself is relatively straightforward and relatively relaxing. Good work simulator. Is the relaxing element a key constituent of a good simulator? Don't know. Your mileage may vary. I think you know it when you feel it, right? I mean, I like car mechanic sim because it requires very little brain power. Now, it's become more fun since I've started playing in hard mode, because in hard mode it doesn't tell you what parts are missing. It doesn't tell you where that part you've got in your hand is supposed to fit. You've got to know it by practice. And if you were going to start a fresh game of it, heartily recommend taking that approach. 2 reasons. Firstly, you get double the amount of experience, which means you can progress through the tech tree a lot faster. Twice as fast, in fact. Yeah. And secondly, you learn where everything goes fairly quickly anyway. So you'll go slower to start with, but you'll gradually you'll get faster, and then you will go, yeah, this was the right move, and you'll feel more proficient. But describing it as paint by numbers is absolutely right. It's a chill game, but it doesn't have deciding what to do next in as many spades as this bad boy here. So what would you do to improve upon this? Oh, a couple of things. Firstly, how about I mean, I know that the No Man's Land map exists, but it is not set up to be good gameplay. It's too No Man's-ish. Firstly, the world needs to feel a little bit more alive. If it weren't for the cars moving around, this would feel like a dead world in the same way as Derail Valley does. The other fields may grow, but it would be so much better if you could see other farm folk working on the fields next door to yours. That would be good. Some kind, a slightly more dynamic pricing system for the economy would be nice as well. And I can't talk about other features because it's too close to my day job, unfortunately. But you get the idea. And then, of course, there's the setting. The setting is a big deal as well. I don't find farming appealing. Okay, what would I find appealing? I don't know. I don't know until I experience it. But I think you want the mix of some kind of... You've got to have the progression loop of I'm doing the thing because it will make me able to do the thing better on the next time I try it. It's the Diablo loop, right? It's a standard classic gameplay loop. It's the one more turn. Now that I've done this, I could do it again better. You know, you've leveled up and therefore you're more capable at it now. Or you've found the sword of mischief and therefore you can smash things about more readily. All of these kinds of things. This is what makes those kinds of games compelling, and it's what makes this kind of game compelling as well, is that I need to do this so I can do that. And then once I can do that, I'll be able to do the thing that comes after that. And so on and so on and so on. And so, I mean, I think with the farm that I've got now, I've kind of reached... I mean, I'm going to have a crack at grapes because maybe it's more fun than I'm giving it credit. But it's an expensive investment, that. And I do want the incredibly expensive sugar cane harvester, because the one I've got is horrible. And I don't even own it, I rent it. And it's just dreadful. It takes so long to harvest a field, it's so slow. I might even look into trying to see, look, I'm already coming up with more gameplay. Yeah, I might look into planting sugar beet maybe and doing that to generate sugar instead. Gee, there's a couple of different ways to go about it, but I'm reaching the end of my desire curve, and I mean this is I think my 5th or 6th most played game of all time. Now you only need 300-400 hours to get into the top 10. Because I bounce around a lot of games, and there's only one game in my top 10 of the most played that doesn't have an associated video series, and that's the old Cyberpunk. And that's not relevant to this story. Everything else there is video to go along with it. So there's a lot of games in there that I wouldn't have played for that long were I not making videos on the topic. Farm Sim though isn't one of those. Farm Sim I would have played this long were I not making videos. I think the video aspect of it maybe prompted me to play it when I would have chosen to play something else on occasion. Well, then you've just undermined the previous message, haven't you? That's certainly possible. Certainly possible. But I'm done. I don't think I've got more mountains to climb now. They've just released the hoses and pumps pack, which makes me go, yeah. But that's just adding more variety to my toolbox of what do you want to do today. And that's no bad thing, but I've still got 75-80% of all of the what do you want to do today toys in the toy box. I haven't taken them out yet. So while I don't doubt that I'll pick that piece of DLC up, I don't need it. It's not like I'm underwhelmed at the amount of quote-unquote content in the game. Can't stand people calling it content. It's just so drab. It's not your fault. You've been programmed to call it that. But it's a horrible thing to call it. It's so much more than that. Yeah, I know, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's an unthinking person in the game marketing department of Ubisoft. Not even joking. Yeah, and it's not even recent. It's from years ago. Yeah, oh well. Never mind. Yeah, so is there further that can be gone with the work simulator? You bet there is. Bring the world to life a little bit more. Do settings that I find a little bit more exciting. Or don't. But the game ends up being that much more exciting. I need more world customization. I need, an easy win here would be, let me design my own character, give me more character choices, let me design my own character, give me more opportunities to see my character, and then let me design my helpers as well. Something the farm manager did quite well actually is the enormous suite of helpers that you had going on, because this farm that I'm operating would be too much work for one person, and even with an occasional Johnny helper going on, still too much work for one person. There'd need to be a few of you in there and that'd be a nice ad. Let me start out on maps that are barely anything. Let the town developing over time. The more that I've done to it, you know, growing of its own volition, all of that kind of stuff. That would all be fantastic things to add, and I can't really talk about anymore. I've said this already because it's part of my day job. Is to imagine these kinds of things and go, what could it be? So there you go. It's do I like work simulators? Yeah, in the same way that you lot do as well. It's really great for. I just want something mindless to do for a minute. You know, I want to spend 3/4 of an hour to an hour doing something with no real, just noodling around. It's doodling, it's knitting, it's it's getting your paint set out. It's any number of other hobbies that have no practical outcome coming out the other side, except that you are building up on something that is yours. And that's the key word, is ownership, owning it. The more of this that I can make mine, the more fondly I think of it. This is my farm. No other farm is like mine. Certainly nobody has chosen to build one in the way that I've done it. Unless, of course, my videos have inflicted upon people the same harebrained notion. And I'm fine with that if that's the case, and that's great. But it's my farm. This is something that I've done. And I don't doubt that even if it were recreated in some fashion, people would go, well, that's pretty inefficient. Let's do that slightly differently to the... I hope this auto unloads. Oh, no. Oh, otherwise I'm going to have to get violent with it to knock all the bales off. Go on. Go on, be nice to me. You know what it's not doing? It's not being nice, is it? Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, I don't... Oh, no, it's all right. You unstrapped it and sold some. There we go. I think you got lucky. Oh, no. No, there you go. You sold another. It's because it was on the deck. If the top ones drop, they'll sell too. There you go. Okay, all right. Phew. Yeah, I really didn't fancy. My plan was going to be to try and roll the trailer, just so you know, just so you're aware. So yeah, we missed out on what would undoubtedly have been a moment of hilarity there, but I'm not sorry to disappoint you. Yeah. So there you go. Great question. Thanks, Hannah. Oh, it's one of these stupid trailers. Flipping thing. These need a little remote switch, and I bet they have them in the real world, or some do anyway, where you can lock that trailer front axle in place. Yeah. And also, I imagine that people who are well versed in using these things know how to make use of them without the trailer just going wherever it flipping well pleases. Hey ho. Anyway, I've been Colonel Failure. Thanks for the question, Hannes. It's a good one. You may give your 2 pence worth of consideration in the chat there, in the comments. I will. I quite like the conversational nature that comes up in these. You know what's great about this channel? You know what's great about it? Is the breadth of interest and the breadth of life experience of the viewers. Because you've all got something to contribute. You've all got a slightly different perspective. Because I'm only, I'm relatively thoughtful, but I represent one point of view, and you can represent every other point of view, and you do. But it never turns into a hostile debate on these things. There's always a lot of thought-provoking comments that comes up, and that's what makes this channel great. It's one of the reasons that I really like doing this video stuff, is because I know that you lot are the kind of people that it's worth doing this type of video stuff for, because you're going to join in whatever fashion. So thanks for that. No, I appreciate it. Yeah. Look, I have trouble sounding genuine. Everything that I say sounds facetious to me, but that's all genuine. You can take that one, stick a postage stamp on it, and send it to the bank. Which is a fairly hollow statement. Anyway, try to avoid submitting any more get back to work requests for a little while, because I've got a queue to get through, and I want that queue to stay about the same length, and I don't want to bump the price up in order to exercise market forces to keep the queue under control. That's not. I think the price is reasonable. It's not cheap or free. It's reasonable. I'm not going to pretend like it's within the pocketbook of everybody, but it's a reasonable price, and I don't want to ramp it up in order to dissuade people from doing it. Instead, I'm just going to say, hold fire for a minute or two. The whole reason that there's a price behind this is so that it's manageable. Otherwise, I'd have 8,000 requests by now with no way of... And I'd just be cherry-picking the ones that seem like the most fun to do. Whereas not having that level of... You parked in the wrong place. Not having that level of control over the subject matter actually makes the subject matter more interesting. Because I don't know what I'm going to be talking about next. Well, I do. I've got a list, but I don't know which one I'm going to do next. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I'll be back soon. This is going to cost me 23 grand to repair. I did say it was going to be expensive. Hey-ho. Paint conditions rubbish. Do not care. And it looks fine to me. This looks like a tractor that is used. See you next time. Cheerio.